Good evening, everybody. This is Steve Fletcher with a trumpet for my people. Today is July 17th, 2019, and I have an update for you. Today is the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 11 launch that took place on July 16th, 1969. And I did a little bit of investigating in this 50-year anniversary that is being talked about right now. And I find it quite interesting that there are correlations between the Apollo 11 launch and the 21 days of mourning. In the book of Daniel, we've got things that coincide with the dates. We have a 21-day quarantine that took place within the Apollo 11 launch. Just as there are 21 days of mourning in the book of Daniel, there was a 21-day quarantine of the astronauts. And the whole mission ended, the end of the quarantine was August 10th, the same day that the 21 days on the Hebrew calendar end this year. So I want to just go through some of this information. Okay, my purpose tonight is not to give you an extensive, absolute, historic summary of everything that took place, but what I want to do is give you bits and pieces for those who are interested. And this is what I usually do. I will give you facts, I will give you information, and for those who are interested in what I'm sharing in the subject, if you want to do more investigation for yourself, if you want to consider it, I'm giving you the information that you can look into. So the first thing I did is I went to Gematria and I looked up Apollo 11. In the English Gematria, Apollo 11 is 804. Now, the first thing that came to my mind is that the Apollo 11 launch 50 years ago was some type of simulation of the arrival of the Antichrist, of the alien Messiah that the world is waiting for, that the elite are waiting for, that NASA is waiting for. Well, it just so happens that Apollo 11, the value of that in English gematria is 804, which is August 4th. So I don't think that is a coincidence at all that is the 216th day of the year. It is the birthday of Barack Obama. Apollo 11, 804. So that was the first thing I saw, and I said, okay, I'm going to look into this and see what I can find, because if that's not a coincidence, then there are probably a lot of other things that we can see within the Apollo 11 series of events that correspond to what we're watching. So if we go back to the start of the mission, we'll see that the start of the mission in Apollo 11 was July 16th, 1969. So right now we are at the 50-year anniversary. You know, for them, they have a jubilee event that they're looking for, 50 years. So they're simulating an event of those returning to Earth, of those coming back to Earth, or those coming to Earth. The return of the Nephilim. 50 years after this event, Apollo 11. So the launch date was July 16th, and the landing date back into the ocean, to the North Pacific Ocean, was on July 24th. Those two dates do not add into the basic understanding of the 21 days of quarantine, because what we have is the 21 days of quarantine begin on the day that they landed on the moon. according to the history of this event and the launch date, and then they landed on the moon. Apollo 11, it says, was the space flight that first landed humans on the moon. Commander Neil Armstrong and lunar module pilot Buzz Aldrin, both American, landed the Apollo lunar module Eagle on July 20th, 1969. So even though they came back on the 24th of July, the 21 days of quarantine began starting on July 20th, and it went through August 10th. So there was a 21-day quarantine event that took them from July 20th to August 10th. Okay, let's go on and read about the quarantine. Now this article is from Wikipedia, Apollo 11, if you want to read the whole article. I'm just taking bits and pieces because I just want to share with you specific data. Okay, July 20th is the key day of when the quarantine begins. 21 days of quarantine, 3 weeks of quarantine, 3 weeks of mourning, beginning on July 20th, and then it goes on to say, in accordance with the extraterrestrial exposure law, a set of regulations promulgated by NASA on July 16th to codify its quarantine protocol, the astronauts continued in quarantine, and after 3 weeks in confinement, first in the Apollo spacecraft, then in their trailer on Hornet, and finally in the Lunar Receiving Laboratory, the astronauts were given a clean bill of health. On August 10th, 1969, the Interagency Committee on Back Contamination met in Atlanta and lifted the quarantine on the astronauts on those who had joined them in quarantine. Okay, so the 3 weeks of quarantine began on the day they set foot on the moon on July 20th, and 21 days brings them to August 10th, and this is when they were given a clean bill of health and the 21 days of quarantine ended. Okay, so let's look now at the calendar in 2019 on the Hebrew calendar of the 3 weeks of mourning, and you will find that this is an exact match from July 20th to August 10th, the 3 weeks of mourning. I find this amazing. First thing I want to share with you is Daniel 10, where it is written about the 3 weeks of mourning. Daniel 10, in the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a thing was revealed unto Daniel, whose name was called Belteshazzar, and the thing was true. But the time appointed was long, and he understood the thing and had understanding of the vision. In those days I, Daniel, was mourning 3 full weeks. I ate no pleasant bread, neither came flesh nor wine in my mouth, neither did I anoint myself at all, till 3 whole weeks were fulfilled. Okay, so if you continue reading on, I've shared about the 3 weeks of mourning, especially in conjunction with the 3rd year of King Cyrus, being that we are now also in the 3rd year of Donald Trump, who has been compared to King Cyrus. I have shared messages on this, and I will leave that message in the description box of this video so you can go back and see what I had written and shared previously about this. But this is the passage that talks about Michael the archangel standing up, confronting the king of Persia, and this is like the final battle of Michael before Satan and his angels are cast down to earth, when Michael overcomes the king of Persia after the 21 days. And so this is why I have been watching specifically the 21 days of mourning, the 3 weeks of mourning leading up to the 9th of Av, because the book of Daniel, remember Jesus said in Matthew 24, when you see the abomination of desolation, according to Daniel the prophet. So Daniel the prophet is the one who gives us the most information about the end time events. Even here in Daniel 10, it says this vision was for the end times, for a time long in the future. So this vision is for us today. And so what we see here then is we see there's a 3-week period that brings us to Michael standing up, which may bring in the beginning of the Great Tribulation, according to Daniel chapter 12, verse 1. And what does Daniel 12, verse 1 say? Daniel 12, verse 1, At that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was, since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that should be found written in the book. So Daniel 10 brings in Michael the archangel, and then chapter 12 talks about the beginning of the Great Tribulation, when Michael stands up. It says, there shall be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. This is the beginning of the Great Tribulation. And it says, thy people shall be delivered. Every one that shall be found written in the book. So we see an escape event as the time of trouble is coming upon the world. God will deliver his people at the time of the coming of the Great Tribulation. Okay, so now let us look at the calendar in 2019, and this is the 3 weeks of mourning leading up to the day of the 9th of Av, the Tisha B'Av, that both temples were destroyed, and when Israel was cast into the desert for 40 years, when the spies returned from the promised land and they believed the false report. So all three of those major events took place on this day, the 9th of Av. And so 2019, here is the 3 weeks, July 20th through August 11th, 21 days. This coincides exactly with the 21 days of quarantine that took place on the Apollo 11 mission. From July 20th, when they set foot on the moon, whether it happened or not is not the point. The point is, history books show this is a simulated event of something that they have planned in the future, or of something that took place, and the dates happen to coincide on a 50-year anniversary, which 50 is the year of Jubilee. So maybe this was their 50-year event of what they were expecting to come in 50 years, the 21 days of quarantine, or the 21 days of mourning, from July 20th to August 10th and 11th. And this is the 21 days, the 3 weeks of mourning. According to the book of Daniel, there are 3 weeks of mourning. This is the only time in the Hebrew calendar on the year where there are 3 weeks of mourning. So is this the time that Michael will stand up? Is the spirit of the prince of Persia looking to come forth at this time, based on the fact that Apollo 11 in English gematria means 804, August 4th, the birthday of the Antichrist, Barack Obama, plus 7 days. Just as it was in the time of Jesus, when a male child is born, then 7 days later he's brought to the temple. The male child, and Barack Obama believes he is the Messiah. And so we have a 7-day event from the birthday of the Antichrist to the end of the 3 weeks of mourning, the 9th of Av on August 10th and 11th, 2019. So that's really all I wanted to share with you tonight. I saw a couple things. I got to searching a little bit. I think that the 3 weeks of mourning lining up exactly the same dates with the 21 days of quarantine of Apollo 11. Apollo 11 meaning 804, August 4th. I don't think that these are all coincidences that are just all piled one upon another and just happen to mean nothing. So if they need to project their plans into the future by doing events in the past, just as 9/11 is the 11th day or the 9th day of the 11th month, so is the 9th of Av, the 9th day of the 11th month on the Hebrew civil calendar. 9/11. The Tisha B'Av is the Hebrew 9/11. So we've got all these events piled into one, looking to recreate another 9/11 event. And this year, 9/11 happens to be on 8/11. This is how it lines up, 8/11. So that's what I wanted to share with you tonight. I pray you are blessed. This is Steve Fletcher with a trumpet for my people and the sign of his coming revealed. Over the next days, I will be considering more the biblical connection between the book of Daniel, the third year of King Cyrus, and the third year of Donald Trump, especially looking at the 3 weeks of mourning leading up to the 9th of Av, where all Israel is remembering the destruction of the first and second temples. I pray you're blessed tonight. This is Steve Fletcher with the trumpet for my people, the sign of his coming revealed.